Alexander Dugin made this video about North Korea, which I thought was very important and insightful. This is what he said.
Of Juche isn't some Soviet-era term. It's the prevailing ideology of North Korea, representing absolute civilizational sovereignty, the principle of relying on one's own existence. This ancient Confucian concept, deeply philosophical, echoes Heidegger's Dasein, being there. The North Koreans declare, we are here. We exist in this world, on this land where our ancestors lived. This is our history. However small we may seem, we are great because we understand our inner dimension, our truth. This conviction grants them tremendous strength to endure hardship and deprivation. When nations and political systems like this come to our aid in critical moments, helping secure our victory, which thus becomes their victory, we must recognize their value. Kim Jong-un's decision to send soldiers to fight for this sacred cause marks, I believe, a historic breakthrough. Ultimately, this is a war of ideas. We wage war against liberal globalization, against hegemony. Those on our side, the side of a multipolar world, sovereignty, dignity, and honor, are fighting this battle with us. Let there be more of them. These are not mercenaries, they are friends, they are brothers. They joined us ideologically. That alone makes their contribution priceless.
Now, that was a tremendous video, but there was so much in there that I am going to go through this video one more time, but we're going to stop it after he makes a point and really just take in the point that he makes, because that is wow, right? That point that the respected Russian philosopher made about North Korea, that video, there's like 20 really good points in that video, right? And that really short, I think that was just over 1 minute. He's talking about North Korea and their involvement in the Russian conflict, and it's like boom, right? Here we go.
Of Juche isn't some Soviet-era term. It's the prevailing ideology of North Korea.
Now, what is he saying? So the ideology of Juche, which is the state ideology of North Korea, is not a Soviet-era term. It's the prevailing ideology of North Korea. Now, what is he saying there, right? North Korea, right, officially, it began as a Marxist-Leninist government, right? It was a Soviet-aligned government on the Korean Peninsula. But they, especially during the 1970s and 80s, when China and the Soviet Union were divided, they really emphasized that they had Juche ideology. They were neither Maoists nor Soviet revisionists. They had their own ideology called Juche, which means self-reliance. And they still believe in Juche, and they still argue that Juche is its own thing. And Dugin is saying that you can't dismiss Juche as just, oh, another, every Eastern Bloc country had their government and their ideology. Romania had Ceausescu, and Poland had various leaders, and Erich Honecker. And no, right? He's pointing out that North Korea still exists, and that this ideology of Juche, which means self-reliance that they believe in, is still their beliefs, and it has transcended the Soviet era. It is not simply a rebranding, it's not the Korean brand of Soviet communism, right? Juche is socialism with Korean characteristics. It is a uniquely Korean ideology for the Korean Peninsula. And that this is something that is really important to take in, right? The idea that, this is the Marxism, Leninism is the universal science of revolution. Well, you can learn a lot from Marxism, Leninism. I have, but the world has largely moved on from that. And that Juche is not just Marxism, Leninism, just a rebranding of Soviet ideology. It is a uniquely Korean understanding. This is very important. Next.
Absolute civilizational sovereignty, the principle of relying on one's own existence. This ancient Confucian concept, deeply philosophical, echoes Heidegger's Dasein, being there. The North Koreans declare...
Now, what Juche literally means is self-reliance. And self-reliance is the understanding that, that a country should rely purely on itself, and civilizational independence, and that this is a concept that we, the Korean people, must exist. We do exist. We are a people. We are a nationality. That's what Juche is saying, and that we have to be Koreans for Korea. We are one people, one nationality. That's a very, very important point to make, and it goes back to Confucius and Confucius's concept of the great relationships and all of that. This is important stuff.
We are here. We exist in this world, on this land where our ancestors lived. This is our history. However small we may seem, we are great because we understand our inner dimension, our truth. This conviction grants them tremendous strength to endure hardship and deprivation.
Now, what is he pointing out there? He's like, with their Juche ideology, with their attachment to the land, with their belief in we are a people, and the spiritual power of the nation, right? The spiritual power of saying we are the people, we are here on the land, we exist no matter how small we are one people, we are Koreans, we are. With that power, they can endure great hardship. And North Korea has endured great hardship. Every building above 1 story tall was bombed and destroyed during the Korean War. They lost 4 million citizens. After the fall of the Soviet Union, their food system came to a grinding halt because they couldn't get petroleum and people starved to death. But yet they have endured. They proliferated their own nuclear weapons and they've launched satellites into orbit. They've endured. And that endurance that North Korea has is rooted in the spiritual power of their self-reliant diason, their self-reliance ideology. This is really deep, what Alexander Dugin is saying here. By saying we are one people, we are one nation on this land, they have a strength, a spiritual strength from that nationalism, from that community, from that collectivism as a people, that national identity that has enabled them to endure great hardship and suffering and hold their country together and not collapse. That's really important, right? That you know, the Eastern Bloc countries, the Soviet Union fell, all the Eastern Bloc countries fell, but North Korea stayed intact. And the fact that in the 1970s and 80s, they developed Juche. And they had a rectification campaign. They had their own cultural revolution where they emphasized the Juche ideology, and they transcended the classical Marxist-Leninist way of doing things and really focused on their uniquely Korean understanding of things that enabled them to endure. This is really heavy, what Dugin is saying.
Nations and political systems like this come to our aid in critical moments, helping secure our victory, which thus becomes their victory. We must recognize their value. Kim Jong-un's decision to send...
Yeah, so Russia is now receiving support on the battlefield from North Korea. North Korea feels that Russia's fight against the U.S.-imposed regime in Kiev is their own fight, right? It is their own fight, and they feel such a spiritual connection with what Putin is doing in Russia. They feel that it's a similar kind of thing of we are the people, these are our lands, we have been here, we will not surrender. And they have an attachment to Russia that they have sent their military forces. This is big. This is very, very big.
To fight for this sacred cause marks, I believe, a historic breakthrough. Ultimately, this is a war of ideas. We wage war against liberal globalization, against hegemony. Those on our side, the side of a multipolar world, sovereignty, dignity, and honor, are fighting this battle with us.
Right. So it's a war of ideology. Liberalism and globalization speaks only of the individual and of all humanity. It never speaks of nations. It never speaks of collective identities. It's only all humanity and individuals, and it seeks atomization, breaking people down into individuals to weaken them and to control them. Globalization rejects sovereignty, rejects nationality, rejects socialism and economic collectivization. Liberal globalization is what is really at stake here, right? If you look at the Western world, money above all else, profits in command, and no obligation between people, no nexus remaining between man and man, but callous cash payment, naked self-interest. Money comes first, breaking and atomizing people down into individuals, right? You look at how lonely people are in American society and how much people feel abandoned, feel like no one is there for them. How, you know, families are coming apart, communities are coming apart. People don't know their neighbors. People don't care about each other, right? We have an economic system where, you know, you're on your own. No health care, no education provided. You know, you're on your own. And that is the reality of what the West is deteriorating into. And that is what they're trying to fight against. They're saying we are Korea, one nation. Russia's saying we are Russia, we are one nation. And we're all in this together. And this is our land. This is our people, our struggle, right? They're fighting for sovereignty. This is an ideological battle. The multipolar world says no, nations, communities, collective identities have the right to exist. And the liberal globalization is resisting that. This is very deep. Let me continue.
More of them. These are not mercenaries. They are friends. They are brothers. They joined us ideologically. That alone makes their contribution priceless.
Right? So these are not mercenaries. It's not like Putin just hired North Korea to send troops there. They're brothers because spiritually, Russia and North Korea have the same fight against liberal hegemony and globalization. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that America has the same fight as well. And we, the American people, must resist liberal hegemony and globalization. And that just like the North Koreans have come together and they've said, this is Korea, this is our land, we are one people, and we are not going to be exploited, and we're going to pull together and be for ourselves, just like the Russians have come together and said, this is Russia, this is us, we are one people, we're going to come together, we're going to be there for each other, we're going to build up our country. I think we should do the same thing here in America. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need to be one people, one land, coming together, caring for each other, building, constructing, investing in communities. That's what we need. That is what we need. And that Dugin understands this, right? And that's why I give Dugin value. I don't necessarily agree with some of his other points, but that understanding that we're battling for multipolarity, sovereignty, national dignity in the face of liberal atomization, liberal globalization, a world where money and individualism come above all else, and that we're battling for the right to have a collective identity in a nation. This is really powerful, important stuff. This is really, really powerful, important stuff. And I really do appreciate Alexander Dugin saying that. And